Welcome to this week's edition of Obiter Dicta. This week we have a special guest, Professor Brandon Beck, who's an adjunct professor teaching in our legal practice program. He earned his undergraduate degree at the University of Texas, a master's degree from Boston University, and he's one of our own. He earned his JD at Texas Tech University School of Law. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's glad to be here.
Why don't we start out by having you tell us a little bit about your practice. You teach part-time, but you're a full-time attorney.
Sure. I'm an appellate attorney. I work for the Federal Public Defender's Office. So whenever a person can't afford legal counsel and they've been accused of a federal crime and they lose their case or want to appeal their sentence in some way, I'm the one that's appointed to handle their sentence out of the Northern District of Texas.
And this is a pretty recent move back to Lubbock?
It's very recent. I moved back here at the end of January. Prior to that, I was doing Texas civil litigation for 3 years.
Professor Beck was one of our standouts in moot court while he was a student here, and we recruited him to come back and teach legal practice. What's your favorite thing about teaching so far?
Well, for me, it's really about just giving back to the university that I feel like did so much for me. I feel like it gave me so much, and then I went off into practice and really built upon that. And I feel like it's a service for me to come back and provide some of that information back to the young law students.
Well, we appreciate you teaching our students. Can you give us 5 words that describe yourself?
Sure. I would say that 5 words that come to mind would be first, interested. I'm someone who can find value in pretty much anything, even if it's somewhat mundane. I'm also very sincere. I try to, the face that you see is not a different face that would be behind someone's back. I'm very loyal to my friends and people that I care for. I'm even very loyal to Texas Tech advocacy program, for example, because I feel like it's done so much for me. I'm analytical. I like to approach things with a problem-solving mindset. And I'm very passionate about the work I do for the Federal Public Defender as well as teaching here at the school.
Can you share with us a skill you have that probably doesn't appear on your resume?
Well, one thing I really enjoy doing in my spare time is woodworking. So I have a bunch of power tools and a bunch of books and YouTube videos I've watched. And I like to make cabinets and bookshelves and tables and stuff like that to furnish our house.
Great. Can you give us a piece of advice for law students, both from your time as a student here, now your perspective as a professor?
Sure. I think my advice would probably be the same from both perspectives. Number one, if you're a student at Texas Tech, I would encourage everyone to get involved with the advocacy program that we have. I think it's one of the things that really makes Texas Tech a special place. And I'd have a similar sentiment for the legal practice program. I think Texas Tech does a lot for the students in teaching them how to not only research and write, but also apply a lot of those skills. And I encourage everyone to take as much advantage of that as possible.
If you could host a dinner party and invite 5 guests, and your wife could be an extra guest, so you don't have to put her on the list, who would you invite and why?
Well, the first person that would come to mind is kind of the person whose writings have influenced me the most, and that's Henry David Thoreau. In fact, my oldest son is named Carl Henry after Henry David Thoreau. Second would be someone I admire, William Faulkner, who I think is the greatest American novelist. Third, Flannery O'Connor, who is the greatest American short story writer, and also from the same town that my wife comes from, and I've gone on the pilgrimage to see her farm several times. Another person who is a writer, Kurt Vonnegut, who I've always enjoyed reading and would really like to have gotten to have a conversation with him at some point. And then finally, one of my greatest pleasures in life is Bob Dylan, the great songwriter. I don't think he would be very interesting at a dinner party because he's so introverted, but just to be able to sit next to him would be a real honor.
Sounds like that would be a fascinating dinner. What is something on your bucket list that you could share with us?
Well, you know, my bucket list usually consists of things that are very attainable. And it's almost an embarrassment to say, because I've traveled all over the United States, going to national parks and camping and doing stuff like that. But I've never been to California, and specifically I've never been to Yosemite National Park. And I think if I could go and just stomp around Yosemite for a week, that would definitely check one off the list.
Final question. As a practicing attorney, I know that you have client confidences to keep, but is there an interesting project that you're working on right now that you could share with us?
Well, yeah, I have several interesting projects. I'm working on some very interesting Fourth Amendment appellate issues. Right now, at the Federal Public Defender's Office, there have been a couple cases in recent years that have changed the way the Fourth Amendment is being interpreted in favor of the defendant. So trying to see how far we can take those cases. Then academically, I also enjoy doing legal research. I've published 2 law review articles this year. But the research I'm doing right now that I'm very excited about is a historical study. And it's looking at the relationship between anti-slavery abolitionism and anti-death penalty abolitionism in the 1840s and 1850s in the Northeast of the United States.
Congratulations on the publications.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us this week.
Thank you.